Hi, thank you for coming back and joining me for summer. This is really the best that your relationship can be. It is that place where you feel like it's magic, right? Where the honeymoon is back, but on a deeper, more intimate level, because this is the very best of joy and happiness, of love and laughter that you and your partner can experience. So summer has been what we have been working towards all through the spring cleaning selections, right? All through that work of bridge building, it was to get here. So let's take a look at what summer might be for your relationship. In summer, we may feel totally happy to be together, fully present and engaged, confident we can collaborate. We're often forgiving of little oopses and mistakes, and we're willing to assist along the way. This is very different from winter and even spring, where we were not interested in being together and doing things together, right? Summer is really a time where we're like, oh my gosh, what can we do together? I'm so excited to do that. Summer signs include things like you have fun together, you trust they have your back, you inspire each other to be better, you have a sense of peace and joy, and you maintain healthy boundaries. And we know about boundaries, and in the 5 seasons of connection, they're critical and they're super valuable. And it does not mean that your partner cannot come in, right? Boundaries are really just those identifiers around the things that you want to create space for in your individual garden, right? So if we think about the 3 garden concept again, you have your garden, your partner has their garden, and that shared garden in between is where you come together. So summer is definitely a place where you are spending a lot of time in your shared garden, building and creating and planting and harvesting and enjoying and nurturing this beautiful garden. And you know you have your individual garden there as well. Because if you are feeling full and complete and excited and vibrant from your hobbies, your interests, your passions, you bring that into the shared garden space, right? Your excitement and zest and zeal for living blends into the shared garden. It spills over into the shared garden. Just like the opposite is true. If you are angry and depleted and frustrated and with toxic negative energy, that also spills over into the shared garden. But here we're talking about summer and how the shared garden is a space of joy and bliss. And so I wanted to ask you, what is summer for you and your partner? Let's talk about you personally. When you are personally in summer, what does that look like? What are the things that bring you to summer? And then when your relationship is in summer, what do you notice? Because once you know what brings you to summer, you can try to integrate that in your life more and more. For some people, it's getting up extra early and going to a yoga class, or going out for a run, or doing something creative like painting or sketching or singing, or any of those beautiful things. Those things bring people to summer. Right? That brings them personally to summer. And then what brings you and your partner to summer together? What are the things that you can do together? Maybe it's, going wine tasting. Maybe it is renovating, a part of your house. Maybe it is, throwing gatherings for your friends. What are the summer experiences that you have? Because we want to get to a place where we can identify what are the strategies that got you to summer. And then what are the strategies to help keep you in summer? Because as we know, you can be very happy one day and everything seems beautiful, and then you get a little complacent or you get a little bit not as invested, and then other seasons will roll in, right? And we will get to those other seasons. But let's talk about summer as an active thing, right? Love is active, summer is active. You want to summarize your life. So what can you do to stay in summer with your love partner? And let's put that in our workbook. Now I'm putting up a list, and it's a very big list, and I know it's a little bit frightening. There are a number of ways that you can get to summer. There are a number of ways that you can foster happiness. These are by no means a definitive amount of, items, but what I want it to do is to kind of set off a flurry of ideas for you and your partner. If you are an adventurous pair, maybe it's mountain biking, maybe it's hiking, maybe it's, taking the dogs and going into new adventures, in the mountains or in the fields. And, if you're creative, maybe it's building something and making something or baking something or creating something in your home. Think about the relationship that you have and what are things that foster happiness. And of course, there's two columns for this, right? There's your personal happiness, which will go in your individual garden. And then there's the shared garden piece. And this will go for you and your partner to do together. So if it is, taking a yoga class that you both love, or if it's going on a, to go weightlifting, or if it's, going, antique shopping, it doesn't matter because it's your plan. But I want you to start identifying what are the things that bring us together? What are the things that we noticed about each other back in the early days that we love doing? Maybe it was this thing and we can't really do that thing anymore because, we're older and we've got children or we've got animals or we're taking care of our parents or life doesn't allow us to do those things. How can we recreate it as best as possible? Because once we understand what brings us happiness, then we can identify things to bring into our current life that bring happiness, right? So yes, mountain biking or hiking might bring you lots of joy. Can you do it every day? Well, that might be really hard if you live in an urban center, very far from the mountains, right? You can't just get up at 4:30 in a dark winter day and go out mountain biking in the dark, right? So it might not fit, but what can you do? Well, maybe you get a stationary bike in your house and you buy an app and you're riding your bike in your house and you have the app that shows you that you're doing mountain biking, right? And so you try to recreate the experience as best you can, and then you make a plan with your partner. On the weekend, we are totally going mountain biking again, right? And you are going to go do that because it brings you both joy. Now, if it's something that you really, really want and it fills you up personally, but your partner's like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. Like my body does not want that, or myself doesn't want that. That's okay. It can still live in your individual garden. And you can say, would it be okay with our family if I took a couple of hours on the weekend and went and did this? Your partner might say, absolutely. And maybe the other day I can take a couple of hours and go do something you don't want to do. I'd like to go to an art gallery, or I'd like to go, meet with a girlfriend or, a guy friend and go have lunch with a friend I haven't seen in a long time. So you both fill up your individual garden space, and that's okay. But I also want you to think about what brings you together and brings you joy, because we need all parts of that. So on this worksheet, list out some of those things. Now, one way we can talk about this is to think about it as a bliss list, because I think we forget sometimes that happiness comes in many forms. So we need to think about it a little bit more holistically. And on this bliss list, it really does challenge you to think a little bit differently about what brings you joy. When you're filling out your bliss list, I want you to think about things you see that bring you happiness. Like real deep joy, not just, oh, that's nice. No, like really deep joy. What are things you hear? Is it a certain genre of music? If it is, listening to birds call out in a forest, is it listening to trickling water of a stream? What do you hear that just grounds you in your joy? What about what you taste? What are things that just bring you back? If that's grandma's apple pie, if that's some pizza from a special pizza place in your neighborhood, if that is, a certain kind of candy or a certain kind of dessert that you really love, think about that and write it in the box. The other boxes are things you touch, and that could be, things on parts of your partner, but it also could be soft, warm sweaters or, sandpaper for somebody who loves woodworking, and just the joy of holding the rough surface of sandpaper and then filing and sanding a piece of wood down to create something gorgeous could be a deep source of profound joy. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be the soft kitten, puppy, very soft cashmere things. You can think, it could be a sharp rock. It could be, it could be anything at all. It could be the metal of a car and you are a huge car enthusiast, and just looking at the metal shine and polishing your car could bring you deep joy. That's totally fine. This is a no judgment zone. Your bliss list is for you to create. Then things you might smell and what you remember. So memories of the greatest, most happiest times of your life. Write down what those were. Because from this, you and your partner will both have your bliss lists, and then you can see what's overlapping. What is something that you hear that brings you deep joy? Maybe it is the sound of a kitten purring, and your partner thinks, oh my gosh, I had a kitten and I had a cat growing up, and I loved that my cat sat on my chest and just purred. It was like healing. It was so beautiful. And then you both decide, you know what, maybe we want to adopt a kitten, right? Maybe we want to go to the shelter and see if there are some, cats that would like a new home. And you didn't even know you wanted that until you realized that it brings you so much joy to share your love with a pet, right? So this is really an opportunity to be surprised and delighted by your partner, but also to say, wow, I didn't know that, when you smell my special Thai curry chicken dish, it just brings you so much joy and you feel so loved that I'm taking such, a long time to prepare such a beautiful meal. I didn't realize that. I will now know that. It's kind of a superpower. When I want to show you that I love you, I'm going to whip out that recipe, because when you smell it, you already know how much you're loved. So this really is an opportunity both to find shared experiences, but also to say, okay, if I want to create joy for my partner, if I want to bring joy, if I want to set up an environment where joy can live, what kinds of things should I consider? You might think, wow, I'm really surprised you didn't list any flowers on your what we smell list. Like, I would have thought you would list some flowers, and your partner might say, you know what, when I smell flowers, I think of, my aunt's funeral, and just how overwhelming the smell was of all of the flowers. And it brings me back to that place of sadness. And then you can think, oh my gosh, how many times have I bought my partner flowers and I didn't even know that somewhere deep inside, even though my partner was grateful and thankful for the flowers, I was also bringing up that, that sad memory. So, maybe we make cinnamon buns, which is a totally different smell, right? It's a conversation starter for you to just say, who are you and what do you love? Because I love you, and I want to create a world in which both of us not only feel love, but experience love on that blissful level. So it is so empowering to know this, because you then are targeted and you are intentional with your love expressions. And that is massively important. And if you know the 5 love languages, your partner might already say, I really resonate with acts of service. So you doing something for me shows me that you love me. Or I really resonate with physical touch. And when you, rub my feet or rub my shoulders or hold my hand, I feel love, right? This bliss list allows you to capture a little bit of that component too, because we don't always go through life thinking, what is our love partner's love language? How do they experience love? We really might just see a bouquet of flowers and think, oh, that's kind of nice. That would be nice in our kitchen. I'll bring that home. Right? But if your love language is, words of affirmation, then a card which says how grateful you are and how much you love them with the flowers or without the flowers might be exactly what the person wants, right? Exactly how they feel love is by hearing and reading the words that you say about their impact and their importance to you. So summer is just this really beautiful encapsulated amount of love and joy, right? And I want you to get that. I want you to feel it. I want you to crave love. I want you to crave the experience of love, the act of loving, and the knowing that it is in the palm of your hands to recreate love. Now, that is not to say if you have a tragedy in your life, if something is really not going well, if you are in a place of pain and hurt, that you need to just push all that aside and pretend to be happy. Absolutely not. Like, that is never what I would recommend. But I would say, if you are in a place of pain, if you are in a place of hurt, and you know that your partner feels love by hearing music from a certain artist, you can put that on in the kitchen while you're making breakfast in the morning on a weekend and send them the message that even in their pain, they are loved. Even in their pain, they are cherished and treasured and seen and heard, right? So summer can also be that you acknowledge and validate the other person's hurt, even if it's not about the relationship. It could be that their parent is in the hospital and very ill. So they are in their own personal winter. But you recognize their sadness and you can still bring joy and love to them, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you're in this happy, bouncy, lovely summer place, but you can bring summer love at any point. So I want you to know what brings summer to your partner's heart and to yours, and share these lists so that when it comes to it and you need to count on being very clear in your verbal and nonverbal communication, I love you, I hear you, I cherish you, I celebrate you, I recognize you, I validate you, and I witness you, and I love you. You can do it in a way that your partner has identified are the ways to their heart. Summer is magical that way. So let's talk about what we learned in summer. We learned what is summer for me. And of course, your partner was able to express what summer is for them. We learned about how we can create our happiness by recognizing the things that bring us that deep level of joy. What are ways that we can nurture a deeper connection when we are at that end of the bridge, when we have built the bridge through spring and we are in that summer place? What can we do to nurture that deep connection, that open, authentic, honest, intentional? Remember, summer is a verb, right? We need to summer. We need to love. We need to activate our emotions. We can't just say, I love you, and then not demonstrate it at all. Summer is active, right? So we need to provide the motion of our emotion. It cannot just be, I feel it and I hold it. What items are on your bliss list? And how can we add more blissful experiences in our day? If you know your partner loves scented candles, or loves this certain scent, maybe a few minutes before bedtime, you light the candle in the bedroom so when they go in, the room already has this scent. It already has this scent of whatever your partner's favorite smell is, and then they just feel so loved and they climb into bed and they cuddle, and it just is bliss. It just is bliss. So I hope this season was eye-opening and a little bit revolutionary, because happiness doesn't just happen. Happiness is work, and it's intention, and it is, sorry, I lost my thought. So I'm glad that I'm so grateful you were able to join me for this session of this video to talk about summer, because it really does define our best relationship. It tells us where we want to go, and then gives us the steps to not only get there, but to stay there. And it is amazing to be in summer, right? Like, we see all the work that we did in the spring. We planted all of those seeds. We nurtured the garden. We aerated the soil. We have these amazing blossoms. They're growing beautifully. Our garden is spectacular, and we think it will always stay that way. And in actual fact, it doesn't, right? Our garden takes a lot of work, ongoing commitment, but sometimes we get busy or we get pulled in other directions. And when that happens, we might still notice that the blossoms up top are looking beautiful, but we might not notice underneath there are some weeds popping up in the soil, or there are some pretty damaging pests coming in and eating at the stalks of the blossoms, right? There might be a sharp word. There might be a little bit of a passive-aggressive zing. There might be a little bit of something sharp in our tone or in our mannerisms. It might be something that we intended because we're a little bit put off, or it might be something accidental and we haven't quite consciously become aware of what our emotions are trying to tell us. But when we're in summer and then these weeds pop up and these pests crawl in, we are at risk of fall. And that is our next season. So I will meet you in the next video. Talk to you soon.